In this module, we're going to be beginning a task which is going to take us a while to go, more than one module. It is the development of a rather specialized property discounted cash flow appraisal model. This really extends what you've done in previous finance work, for previous subjects or units, by developing a model which is very practical, rather comprehensive and appropriate for a single tenanted property, and you'll be able to use it to analyze almost any level of property, certainly single tenanted properties, in your professional lives, in your personal lives, whatever. So it's a very practical and useful model to develop. It is really just a development of what you've done before in introductory finance subjects. Okay, as you go through this, it's going to be based on developing a model that's done on a self-correcting template. So that means that you can see things going right at your own pace by getting the yellow highlights to go away. Once you have done that, it will tell you, it basically sort of proves to you, that you have your equations worked out, you're on the right track. So it's a search and destroy the yellow highlight exercise. And it's supported by video demos and so on. So that should be fairly straightforward. You need to download a template to work with, and you'll find that on the template page here, and really just go through the resources in that template. The template includes a static worked example. By static worked example, I mean it simply has the numbers there. It doesn't have the equations. But if you put in the data from the static examples into the model that you build, you should see the same answers, the same total model appearing. And that's a very good way of testing discounted cash flow models. From time to time in your professional careers, you may find yourself being presented with a package, maybe from one of the standard producers, Estate Master or someone like that, or maybe your in-house organizations package. And if you want to test them, the best way to test them is to have some worked examples, simply because the array of parameters is so complicated that going through and reverse engineering each and every equation is pretty tedious. An easier way of doing it is put some case studies in, and as long as the case studies vary all of the parameters, then by and large, if an error exists, it will come out through the application of the case studies. So having an array of case studies that you're confident with is really important. The other thing that I'd recommend to you very, very strongly is to test or check your models as you build them using your financial calculator. This is not to say that I expect people to sit down on a large sheet of paper and go through all of the calculations with a financial calculator. That is fairly tedious. However, as you're building it, to check with your financial calculator is excellent experience with getting up to speed with your financial calculator. So that's one benefit. The other benefit is that it gives you an independent check. Now, this is really, really important when you're in practice, because if you find yourself giving advice to somebody or running some sort of an appraisal analysis of some property and you make a mistake, you might put the data in the wrong way around, you might take a parameter from the wrong cell, you might use the wrong finance function or whatever it is. Okay, and we all make mistakes. If you're using it for a real property, for a real paying client who is putting their money up because of your advice, and you get it wrong, there's no point coming along and saying, oh, it was only a little mistake, I put 32 million instead of 23 million. Yeah, that might have happened, and it is only a small mistake. But that small mistake might cost somebody a huge amount of money and might even run them broke. And they're likely to get very cross and send their lawyers after you. And that wouldn't be very nice to find yourself bankrupted and humiliated in the profession. So don't do it. Make sure you check everything before you go. Okay, work through the exercise. Check it with your financial calculators, because that gives you at least 2 benefits. And perhaps some of you may want to even start applying it to properties that you're familiar with, the family home, or maybe a house that you own, or an investment property, or what have you. I have had now a number of students, after they've finished this exercise and built themselves a nice little model, especially the older ones who may already have an investment property. I had one student come along and say that as a result of doing the analysis, they decided to reduce their portfolio because they could see that they were overgeared, it wasn't working, and so on. And so there are very practical and useful conclusions you take from it. This exercise also gives you the confidence to know how the advanced cash flow analysis of complex properties work, because even though we're going to be applying this to a single tenanted property, which is very simple, and in the industry, typically that's not done, certainly not for residential investment properties. Why is it not done? Partly because it's too hard. A lot of people aren't up to it. Often it actually takes the shine off when people start to go through some reflection on all of the estimates that are involved, and they discover that whereas they might have an investment property or 2 or 3 or 10, because somebody told them that you'll always make money if you borrow money and invest in property, and suddenly they discover that in the world of the way it is today, that's not really the case once you put in sober estimates of where the world is going. And so that's something in front of you, extraordinarily powerful. It doesn't mean it gives you the right answer. It's not a crystal ball. But on the basis of the best information that you have, it is the best way of appraising a property investment because it's the most thorough. One of the other little things about DCF analysis is that it encourages you to ask questions that people often don't bother about, and often questions that people don't give sufficient thought to the implication of, different things. If the likely trajectory of your local market where the property is not as glorious as maybe some other place, because not everywhere has stellar property growth the way that you might find in some of the main capital cities. People say, yes, well, capital growth is not there, what have you, but so what? Well, the so what is extraordinarily dangerous if you're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. It's a good idea to know what the so what really means. Is it something that's not important? Fantastic. Move on with your life. But if it's something which is important, but you haven't analysed mathematically, you're exposing yourself to financial loss and looking like a stupid and all that sort of stuff. Okay, fabulously interesting unit. Give it time. Check it with your financial calculator. I hope you enjoy the result. If you do it well, you're certainly going to have something that will serve you very well for the rest of your professional career.